you some really some meat for this one for you to take away so that you feel like I am ready. I have this under control and I'm ready. So again, welcome. We'll begin in prayer. And I'm going to go back, if you were here for the first session, I'm going to go back and use that reading from Luke, just because we just want to remind ourselves that we are tilling the soil for our young people so that we can have some, bear some fruit with our young people in our programs. So just invite everybody to take a couple deep breaths and bring ourselves here, fully present. While a large crowd was gathering and people were coming to Jesus from town after town, he told this parable. A farmer went out to sow his seed, and as he was scattering the seed, some fell along the path. It was trampled on, and the birds ate it up. Some fell on rocky ground, and when it came up, the plants withered because they had no moisture. Other seed fell among thorns, which grew up with it and choked the plants. Still other seed fell on good soil. It came up and yielded a crop 100 times more than what was sown. This is the meaning of the parable. The seed is the word of God. Those along the path are the ones who hear, and then the devil comes and takes away the word from their hearts, so that they may not believe and be saved. Those on the rocky ground are the ones who receive the word with joy when they hear it, but they have no root. They believe for a while, but in time of testing, they fall away. The seed that fell among the thorns stands for those who hear, but as they go on their way, they are choked by life's worries, riches, and pleasures, and they do not mature. But the seed on good soil stands for those with a noble and good heart, who hear the word, retain it, and by persevering produce a crop. So we pray, Jesus, as we seek to follow you and produce a good crop, teach our hearts to be fertile soil. Teach us to till the hearts of our young people so that your love can grow there without any obstacles. Show us how you walk alongside us and how your presence changes every aspect of our lives. We ask this in your most precious name. Amen.
Amen.
Again, welcome all. This is our last session on small groups, so welcome. And take it away, Danielle.
Thanks, Steve. Okay, so tonight we really want to make things very, very practical for you. I am going to be going over some calendaring success tips and kind of walk you through from the very beginning of what we should be doing with small groups up through the first 6 weeks of sessions. I'm going to turn it over to Kate, and she's going to be discussing different kinds of activities, different kinds of formation to really create a well-rounded group of sessions for your kids. We're going to bring it back to me, and I'm going to actually do a step-by-step on how to calendar for small groups, some good tips, trying to make it really practical. And then we'll throw it to Mary, and she'll give us some last-minute good things to send us off into small groups. So everybody good with that? Give me a thumbs up. Okay, here we go. I'm going to do a little screen share. And here we are. So as you can see, it says right at the top, small groups calendaring success tips. What I'm going to be doing is sharing my screen and pretty much reading through and explaining these different tips and tricks. Some of these things you have probably heard us say before. If you've ever come to any of the Everett Fritz things, you might have heard him say some of these things before. Some of it is going to just sound like common sense, and it totally is, but we've put it all together in one package. Now, Kate emailed you a copy of an earlier version of this document. So you might have printed it, you might have a copy sitting nearby. Great. If not, no problem. Because again, this is going to be on your screen the whole time. If you have a question at any time, team, I need you to be kind of watching the screens to see if anybody's raising their hand. But I will try to stop in about 15 minutes and check for questions. Okay. All good? All right. So let's imagine that we are here. It is before confirmation and you are a small group leader and you are like, okay, here we go. We are on this endeavor and we are going to plan out our small group stuff. What is sort of the first thing I should be doing before confirmation even happens for these young people? You want to begin praying for your young people. You want to be asking God to help show you how you can best reach them. Invite the Holy Spirit in. Come, Holy Spirit, to just open these youth's hearts, because we know this is a new model of discipleship. This is new for all of us. And so not only do we want to be excited about and open to this new adventure, but we want these young people to be open to this as well. We would really encourage you to pray for them by name. So if you, as a small group leader, do not already have a list of the names of the confirmation students, get that from your faith formation leader or faith formation leader. Pass that on to your potential small group leaders, because we know how very powerful it can feel to know that we ourselves are being prayed for by name, right? And we want you to commit to praying for these folks on a regular basis. Now, whatever regular means to you, maybe that means you put this list on your bathroom mirror and you are praying for these kids every single time that you go to the bathroom and you see it. Maybe you have a routine where you pray in the evening before you go to bed, include their names in there. But we want you to know that it's important for us to say to you that we want all of this to be rooted in prayer. The next thing you want to do is to strategize how you are going to invite the newly confirmed into small groups. Now, Kate, remind me, did you email out the invitation part of that? Do you want to say just 1 second's worth of stuff about that, that attachment that you sent?
Right. So the invitation is actually, I think, one of the most undervalued parts of this entire process. This is the piece where we're reaching out to young people and they're deciding whether or not they come. One thing that I think we all notice about invitations to us is that our calendars are full, we're busy. So invitations need to occur multiple times and in multiple ways. And the best way to get us to come is if somebody we know is also going. So bearing in mind those common things to each of us, Everett kind of shared 3 main paths that organizations often take to invite their young people into small groups. So the worksheets that I sent you, the first one was an overview of all of the 3 different ways. The second one, and second, third, and fourth broke out each of those 3 methods. So if you just look through each of those and see which may fit your needs in your own parish most, that would make the most sense. Everett did mention several times that he has found inviting through the parents most effective, especially because, and Danielle will say this later, but especially because parents still hold keys at this point. So you need them on board for teens to actually show up to anything.
Yeah.
And if they don't have keys, they have the insurance and the car.
Absolutely. Thank you, Kate. Okay, so we're going to encourage you to get together, faith formation leaders, small group leaders, even invite the pastor to strategize how you want to roll this out, how you want to invite these kids to be in small groups. Okay, next item here, SGLs. That's just my shorthand for small group leaders. Get to know some of these soon to be confirmed youth. How can you do that? Well, you have a leg up on everyone if you have already been teaching in the confirmation program. So congratulations if you are just being promoted to small group leader and you already have a relationship. But let's say you don't. What are some ways that you can start to establish that relationship? You could sit in on some confirmation classes. You could plan to be a part of a meal that the kids are going to do, whether that's an upcoming fish dinner or a pizza party. Or plan to just have a fun event where there is an opportunity for you to show your personality, because we know in some parishes, you're going to have enough kids to have multiple small groups, right? And then you'd have multiple small group leaders. And so what would be ideal is for you to be able, for it to be really symbiotic, that like you as a leader are sort of choosing the kids you want to be with, and those kids are sort of choosing the person they would feel most comfortable with, because those are the small groups that are really going to have the best kind of dynamics going on. Again, before confirmation, moving down our page, getting parents on board with the concept of small groups. This is something that's new. So parents don't really know much about it unless you've been sharing with them that this is coming. So how can you start to inform your parents about what small groups are? In all the ways you would usually inform parents of things. Either have an in-person meeting, Maybe you can have a video call like this because your parents are spread out and it takes a long time for folks to get to your parish. Maybe you have a more rural parish, so that would be a good option. Do parents read emails? If they regularly do from you, great, do that. All those things. We find that, of course, those one-on-one conversations, if you can have a phone call or a coffee chat, those are your best ways to really encourage parents to get on board with small groups. Again, one of the most important things too is to really have your pastor on board. And can we all just like do a little round of applause right now for Father Tom Whitman being on this call? Because seriously, as a pastor, like that speaks volumes. Thank you, Father Tom. Getting your pastor involved and on board when he is saying to the parents, hey, I really support this initiative, that really helps to lend credibility to this new adventure. And we have several pastors throughout our diocese who are on board. And so we really are excited about their support. And through the discussions that you have with the parents, you might even want to invite a few of them to become small group leaders, or maybe they will even start to show that kind of interest in it. That once you really start to explain that this is a different model of catechesis, that this is really about relationship and walking with these young people, maybe some of these parents are going to go, you know, I never really thought I wanted to be like in the front of a classroom teaching, but this kind of sounds like me. I think I'd like to give this a try. So this is another aspect that is going to be happening before confirmation. Also, ask yourself, how are you communicating within your parish about small groups? Has that even happened? If it hasn't, no problem. But we just want to remind you of a couple key groups who you want to make sure know that small groups are happening. Look at your parish leadership. Does your parish or pastoral council know that small groups are coming? If not, figure out how to tell them. Do you give a monthly update to the pastoral council? Is that something that your pastor can do at pastoral council? Does the staff at your parish know that small groups are coming? If not, they should tell them. Also, how are you going to help your parish understand that this is the next step in the faith formation rollout? It would be awesome if everyone in the parish knew about this. Do most people know what's going on from the larger parish in faith formation? Not necessarily, but it would be amazing if they could. Thank you, Steve. I appreciate that. Another way to communicate this within your parish is to show the overview of the rollout video. And that is something that if it's not on our Padlet, faith formation team, we would love to have on there. I'm just not sure if it's a link on there. And that will tell people what's coming, what has happened already, what's coming. And by seeing that, you might even recruit a volunteer or two in the process of showing that video. What else are you going to be doing before confirmation? Well, now it's time to actually create those small groups. So this is the point at which the faith formation leader and the small group leaders can do this together. Bring your names together of all these little munchkins and do this with some prayer, with some discussion. Think about how these kids might fit well together within groups. Can you make an all girls group, an all guys group? Do you know that these kids go to school together and they're already a friend group? So we already have like an affinity group going on, to use a terminology that Everett Fritz uses. Those are some keys to making good small groups. And of course, we want to keep always in mind the ratio in our child protection guidelines, which are 2 adults per every group of up to 8 youth. So once you've created what you think these small groups are going to be, then sit down and find the days and times of your first 6 sessions. So you're going to want to choose a day and a time that works for the students who are in that small group. You're going to want to communicate those dates to parents, and you're going to ask them for a 6-week commitment to give this a try. Just give this 6 sessions or 6 weeks, however you want to term that. And then once you've actually selected your dates, you're going to go in and you're going to put in your activities. What are those sessions going to be? How are you going to win the relationship? We talked about this in our first session. This is the human formation part of things. And this is where you're just getting to know each other. You're just hanging out with the kids, having fun with them. You're letting those walls come down. Irene Schneider had asked the question about, can you include prayer? And I guess it was just sort of like an assumption on our part, like, of course you would do that. Yes, absolutely. Include prayer in these opportunities. But our caution to you is just don't start to delve into too many other areas of formation before you've given this group the time to really gel and the teens to warm up and connect with the small group leaders. Okay. All of that was before confirmation, pre-confirmation. Confirmation day comes. What do? Well, small group leaders, hey, go to your parish's confirmation. Your presence there is important. What does it tell the youth? Number one, it tells them that you are going to show up. Starting now and from now on, it also communicates to the youth that you are praying with and for them. Now, I know that some confirmations are rather large and the seating is limited. So obviously, if that's the case and you can't go, I'm sorry about that. But if you can go, you should go. That would be great. And another great way to affirm these young people and to really let them know that you care about them is to write them a little note. So write them a card, whether that's for each confirmation candidate or just the ones that you've selected who are going to be in your own small group. Let them know that you're really looking forward to this. Let them know that you're anticipating you growing together in faith. And if you can give them some kind of personal affirmation that lets them know that you know them or know some little part about them, that of course is just like the cherry on top. And you need to be authentic in it. You know, kids know if you just write like, you're a great kid, it's like, that's not really gonna ring very honest or very true. So if you can say something like, I love the way that you're willing to be a reader at Mass, or again, some other kind of affirmation. I love the way that you're so kind to your younger brothers and sisters. Whatever it is, that sort of thing really builds kids up and lets them know that you care. Confirmation day comes, confirmation day goes. Now you've got your first 6 sessions. You need to have already communicated this calendar to parents, but that's an ongoing thing, right? You don't just send it out to parents one time and you're like, oh, everybody should know, you should both put it on there. Parents get confused. Parents are busy. Parents are tired. They're holding their eyeballs open. They don't know which way they're going. Communicate often and make sure it's a way that works for parents. So you know your group of parents. Do all of those parents read emails? If they do, fabulous. Email them. Would they rather be on a text thread together? Is there an app that you use regularly? At our parish, we use Remind. It's fabulous. Other parishes use things like GroupMe or Band, and we had mentioned a couple of these last week. I mean, however you're going to be able to communicate to your parents in multiple ways, do it. Also print a paper copy because it might get hung up on the fridge and then someone might see it. That's also great. But figure it out. I mean, if your parish uses social media, if you have a Facebook group, or if you want to create a closed Facebook group just for the parents of those small group kids, do that. Just figure out what's going to work for you so that you have multiple ways for parents to get the information and for you to get the information out to parents. Run those first 6 sessions. Send follow-up emails or texts after each of the sessions, just letting parents know what the major topic was. Well, and in this case, it's the first 6, so you're just hanging out, having fun together. Let them know that kids made a silly face on the pizza with the pepperoni. Send a picture of, the mini golf activity that you did. Whatever it is, let parents know that you appreciated spending time with their kid and that the session went well and you look forward to seeing the kid next time. And just really lean into that and have fun. That's kind of a great way to set you up for success in your small groups. Questions? Look at all these hands. So many hands up. I don't know who to choose from.
Holy smokes, Danielle, that looks like a huge list.
I know, there are none. I know I just shared a lot of info. So if you're just still kind of trying to process, totally cool. Jot a question down for later or send it in the chat. I don't think I missed anything in the chat here. Chat would be best because we might not see your hand. Thanks, Steve. Okay, yeah. Okay, well, if there are no questions on that section, I'm going to turn it over to Kate, who's going to talk about different kinds of activities that could fit into different buckets of kinds of formation. Kate.
Thanks, Danielle. So immediately after my section, Danielle's going to take all of that stuff that we basically fire hosed at you, and she's going to put like dates and a calendar on it. So just so that it's a sample. And I remember like reading through this as we were planning the training and going, that first page suddenly looks like I have a new full-time job. And then once we had a chance to put it in the calendar and look at like, oh, actually, these are bite-sized pieces. It does take work, but it's not as overwhelming as maybe like a whole front page may look. So I'm excited for you to see that next. But my piece particularly is to help start thinking about what happens after those first 6 weeks. So those first 6 weeks are all about winning the relationship. And in the first session, we talked about that's primarily human formation. And obviously, you can bring in other kinds of formation, but really, we're focusing on the relationship and on building skills and capacities in our young people so that they can be in relationship. And that's what human formation is all about. But to be well-rounded, there are 3 other kind of categories. And it's not an end all to be all, but they're a way of thinking that helps us be aware of all the ways that the Lord is inviting us to grow in discipleship and the students that we're walking with. So I'm going to share a PowerPoint with you just so that you can see something as I'm doing this as well. So this should be in regular PowerPoint mode now. Is that true for you? Okay, great. So the first kind was human formation. We talked about that, but the second one is intellectual formation. And we think about this, and actually, I think we're really familiar with this. This is what we usually think about when we're thinking about faith formation. It's the Bible study. It's learning things about the faith. It's apologetics, or basically being able to defend your faith or understand your faith when somebody has questions about it. So intellectual formation is another, and spiritual formation. When I taught in middle school, the number one question that I got from students once they were comfortable was, how do you pray? And what does God's voice actually sound like? That's spiritual formation. It's the being able to pray and to talk to God and to understand what he's saying back to us. And the last section is pastoral formation. And that section is basically service. It's the doing of the faith in community. So the service kind of going to a soup kitchen or being kind to somebody at school, that kind of stuff is the pastoral formation aspect. So why do we even bring up 4 different categories? Because you would probably land by instinct on all of these at some point. The point of bringing them up is to be deliberate about incorporating each of these aspects, because each of these aspects each of us will have 1 or 2 that are more comfortable for us and 1 or 2 that are a little bit more of a stretch. Maybe you're really comfortable doing service, or maybe you're not. Maybe the idea of sitting down with a homeless person is like, oh my gosh, what do I do? What do I say? I don't know how to encounter that person. I can hand out a bag, but I can't sit with a person. And pastoral formation is basically teaching our kids how to be with people who need, and how to meet those needs with their own skills. So each of us are going to be comfortable in some areas, and being aware of all the areas can help us make sure that we're doing all of those things with our young people so that they can grow in areas that they're comfortable and in their growing edges. Examples. What on earth do we mean when we say each of these? Like, are there actual simple things that we could do? Here are 11 sample activities. And what I'd like us to do right now is, on a scratch piece of paper, if you could just number 1 through 11. Or if you don't have scratch paper, that's okay. Just read through, kind of commit in your brain. 1 through 11, I'd just like you to put the initial of the kind of formation that you think each activity is. So I'll read it for you so you don't have to keep your eyes glued on the screen, but just go through and see if you could figure out which each one is. The first one, going to coffee together. Second one, number 2, going to adoration together and then discussing your prayer over coffee. Number 3, doing a book or a video study together. Number 4, serving in a soup kitchen. Number 5, walking a hiking trail together. Number 6, listening to a podcast and then gathering to talk about it. 7, going to mass together. 8, reading the Sunday readings and talking about it. Or them. Number 9, getting together to do yard work at each other's homes. 10, visiting shut-ins or a nursing home. And 11, learning about the different types of prayer. Okay, I'm going to flip the screen and there are going to be a ton of colors. I color coded each kind of formation for you. I'm not going to go through every single activity, but what I wanted to do, go baby, go. There we go. What I wanted to do is just pull out a couple of them. I think some of them, like going to coffee together, walking a hiking trail, going to mass, those are kind of ones that are pretty intuitive. Your mass is spiritual, coffee is human. We've done this kind of stuff. But one that is often kind of misplaced is something like learning about the types of prayer or reading the Sunday readings and then talking about them together. A lot of times we'll peg those as spiritual activities, but they're really, if you think about it, it's intellectual formation. We're kind of feeding our brains in this. We can be praying in those moments, but the primary mode is like learning about the thing, not talking to Jesus in the thing. So not saying that they're mutually exclusive, but just being aware that if you're putting down learning about types of prayer, learning about different charisms, that's intellectual. That's not actually spiritual. So if you're trying to make sure that spiritual kind of spoke to the wheel is covered, make sure that whatever you're doing is actually praying. So
Kate, I just want to say I love that distinction because so often I think the spiritual and intellectual ones can get a little confusing. So like if a small group wanted to pray the rosary, but the kids didn't really know too much about it, so the small group leader led a little discussion about what the rosary was and gave them a little bit of info, and then they prayed it together, what would that be?
both. The intellectual
You'd
piece
be-
about talking about it and the discussion, right? And then the actual praying together. And I think that's
Yeah.
why I said they're kind of muddied too, is just that it's not mutually exclusive, right? I'm not saying that if you're reading the scriptures, you're not praying. I hope that you are. But sometimes we're so focused on the intellectual formation because that's where we're comfortable. A lot of times when we think about faith formation activities, we think about intellectual formation over the other areas. So I'm just making that distinction so we're aware. I don't want to over separate them, but I just want us to be just to be aware so that we can cover all of them. Thanks, Danielle. So part of tonight is being super practical. Your activities will be successful with your small group to the extent that they are relevant to the people in your small group. But that feels like a really high level thing to think about. Like how do you measure the relevance until you get to know them? Like what are the indicators that this might actually be a good idea for them? Because Everett talked about going for a manicure with like a girls' small group all the time. And I just remember thinking every time he said it, I was like, if somebody took me out for a manicure as a high schooler, like that would not have been my thing. You would have gotten me if I could do a Bible study, but you would not have gotten me over a manicure or over putt-putt. Like those would not have been my things. So how do you know? I would love to just offer, what the heck? I would love to offer 4 just kind of indicators or things to be aware of that might help you kind of narrow down where teens may find relevance. So first, if your teens are talking about or just aware of whatever that topic is, then that might be a good one to address. So if they're already talking about like, why do bad things happen to good people? Okay, well, this is a great topic to pull in. If your teens are already talking about like, hey, so and so was talking about this thing called Tenebrae, and I don't know what those are. Well, maybe you take them to a Tenebrae Holy Good Friday service or something like that. It's a spiritual activity. So, second one, your teens all mentioned struggling with a certain area. Okay, we're getting ready for prom, and we talk about making good choices. We talk about courage. We talk about chastity. We talk about temperance. The session is based on a common interest. So maybe the human formation that you do is making a playlist of Taylor Swift so that you can listen to the Super Bowl and just kind of blend both of those because that's common anyway. Maybe your teens collaborate to plan the session with you. And when I say collaborate, I don't mean handing them a list of 4 options and they circle one and then you plan it. I'm talking about like they're planning it with you as a team, shared responsibility to plan it, shared responsibility to work out the details. Those 4 things will point you in a direction of things that will work. And the best part is that you're not going to be perfect and they're not going to be perfect. So you're going to have a session or 2 that flops. And the idea is just not to flop the same way twice, right? And you're going to have sessions that do amazing. And be paying attention to where your teens light up, and that will help direct you and guide you as to where to go next. So without further ado, again, on the practical side, I'm going to toss this right back to Danielle. And she can talk about calendars and what that might look like once we get everything on a calendar.
Awesome. Thank you, Kate.
Mhm.
Okay, so you're all set, right? You've gone through your 3 sessions of training and you're like, okay, here we go. I'm gonna plan my small group for the rest of this spring. And I'm gonna look at all those things that Danielle was suggesting I do and when I do them. So here we go. Here are the easy breezy steps. Step number 1, start with your confirmation day. That's a good marker, right? Put that on the calendar. For example, I'm gonna pretend that I'm a small group leader and I talk to my faith formation leader, and Friday, March 22nd is my parish's confirmation day. I'm putting it in my calendar. Number 2, get the list of the confirmation students from the faith formation director, put them somewhere prominent in your car, on your mirror, at your desk at work, and start praying for them. You're going to find out when the confirmation classes meet if you don't already know that information. Arrange to go to 1 or 2 of them if you're in the process of getting to know, as you would say, Bunny, the little urchins. Isn't that what you call them? Or do you call them munchkins? Which one? I can't remember. Sweethearts? Sweet peas.
I call them my little poopsies.
Oopsies. Okie dokie. Yes. So you want to start getting to know these kids. You want to arrange to attend a couple of these classes. So put those on your calendar. So again, I'm pretending I'm a small group leader. Then I've talked to my faith formation leader, and actually Sunday, February 25th and Sunday, March 10th are the last 2 classes before confirmation. So I'm going to show up and just kind of be a presence. Maybe I have a little part in like doing the opening prayer or something for the confirmation class. I'm there, kids are seeing my face, I'm getting to know them. Step number 4, I'm going to talk to the kids and the parents. We're going to determine the best day and time to meet. I guess step number 4 would technically be you're making the small group. I guess I kind of skipped over that. So you're making the small group with the faith formation leader, because then you would actually know which youth to talk to, because you want to determine the best day and time to meet. And this was a question that Daria put in the chat. Thank you, Daria. So for me, my group says, hey, we want to keep meeting on the same night that we've been having confirmation sessions. We want to meet on Wednesday nights from 7 to 8:30. And I'm like, great, I don't even have to change anything. So then I start the calendaring. And I'm like, all right, so I've got confirmation day, and that's the 22nd. So I'm going to now schedule my first session a couple weeks after that. So I make week 1, Wednesday, April 10th from 7 to 8:30. What's my activity? It's a human formation activity. We are going to make pizza together at the parish. Maybe we're going to make a little dessert too, maybe some cookies. I decide we're going to do this on an every other week basis because I know that things can get kind of busy toward the end of the school year, but we're going to do a just real light, fun game night, Wednesday, April 24th from 7 to 8:30. I'm going to bring Jenga. Someone else is going to bring Uno. I just saw that there are these giant Uno cards. Does anyone have them? These ginormous Uno cards. I just ordered some from Amazon. I cannot wait to play with them. If you have those, bring Trouble, something else that would just be a fun board game. My week 3 is going to be Wednesday, May 8th. So this is an every other week kind of thing. This time we're going to meet off campus. I need a permission slip. We're going to do a hike at a local park, and everybody is going to bring a snack. When we were going through this plan together, Mary, in her practical nature, said to me, well, what happens if it rains? And Kate said, well, that could be fun. Everybody could just bring their rain gear and they could just go for a tromp through the rain. And then Mary was like, or you could have a rain plan. Like, so think about that, because May is a really soggy month. So my super idea of going for a hike at a park might not really work, but everybody bringing a snack thing means you're not, forking over any money for a snack. So we're going to meet 2 weeks later, Wednesday, May 22nd. This is going to be a relaxed night because I have looked ahead. I know that the kids' finals are in 2 weeks or in 3 weeks. So what we're going to do is we're just going to have a relaxing night. Maybe this is you get permission from your pastor and everybody brings their little dog. And you just have some coloring books. It's like dog therapy. Or maybe you have a small group with just ladies and you do a spa theme and everybody gets their nails done and you do masks. Maybe you have a group of guys who are really active who just want to play volleyball or basketball or cornhole. You're going to know your small group and you're going to be picking something that you think would really work for them. The following week is, again, 1 week to finals now, and you decide we're going to do mini golf. This would also need to be a permission slip evening, and maybe you as the small group leader treat everybody to ice cream. And then you plan your last of those 6 sessions, the hanging out thing. And where is Nick Heiss? Come on now. This was his idea. You celebrate. Everybody has ended the school year. It's Saturday, June 8th, and you plan that evening you all are going to go axe throwing. And Father has agreed he's going to come too, and he's going to pay for it. Amazing. Okay, there you go. You've got your first 6 sessions. Does that seem hard? Okay, I'm looking for reactions. Does it seem easy? Does it seem intimidating? Team, what's happening with reactions? I can only see 4 or 5 people at a time.
You
Don't
can
have
move the
reactions
little
yet.
bar over so you can see everybody.
All right. Technology is hard.
Now
Okay.
we're getting some thumbs up. And some.
Okay. All right. So you've planned your first 6 weeks. You think this is really going to work. You've chosen those dates. And here's what it looks like for those of you who are visual learners, in case you're like, oh, that's just so much text. The little aqua strips are where they fit in. So we've got 2 sessions in April. Then we've got the ones in May. If you think this one is going to be too close to Memorial Day or it's going to be too close to finals, spread it out. Again, you know your people, right? And then that last one I had scheduled for June 8th to go axe throwing, which, oh my gosh, sounds crazy. Okay. So once you have planned those 6 sessions out, as soon as you have decided on those, you're going to want to make sure that you get that to the parents because you're going to ask them to RSVP for their kids. If there are any major conflicts, like maybe most of the small group sings and there's a chorus concert one of those nights, but it's like a one-off on a Wednesday. You want to make sure you know that if there's going to be some major conflict for the majority of the group, Adjust if necessary. And again, remind them you're only asking them for this 6-week commitment or a 6-session commitment to kind of kickstart things and get it going. In that last session, after you have fed them with pizza and let them go axe throwing, yes, you want them to be really happy. You're going to say to the kids, honestly, do you want to continue meeting? And they are going to resoundingly say, yes, this is awesome. And you're going to say, great, let's plan some activities together. And so together, you guys decide you're going to do a once a month summer thing together. So it's going to be just 3 sessions. And here's what you come up with. You decide that on Wednesday, June 19th, it's going to be a movie night. One of the kids picks this awesome movie. Could even be some episodes of The Chosen. Someone's going to bring some popcorn, because who doesn't buy Boy Scout popcorn? And someone else is going to do something else, right? You plan a movie night. You're going to have that at the parish, so you don't have to worry about permission slips. Summer session number 2 is going to be on Saturday, July 13th. This is going to be a water day. You're going to meet at your local beach, or if you don't have a beach, a park, or if somebody has a pool, great, or there's a community pool, awesome. You're going to play some beach games. Maybe you could have a sandcastle building contest. When you put the word contest in there, kids love that. And perchance, if your youth are service oriented and you were at a beach, you could also kind of combine that human formation playtime with a little bit of pastoral formation with service. And maybe you guys just decide that the area of the beach you're on needs a little cleanup. And so you're going to take an hour or whatever and do a little beach cleanup. And then maybe you're going to eat together, either grab some food or grill some burgers and fries, something like that. Then you decide you're going to do one more session in August on Sunday, August 11th. And this time you're going to go to Mass together. So that would be your spiritual formation. And then you want to spend time together afterward. You're going to feed the kids. You're going to play a few minute to win it games. And then you're going to say to the kids, hey, look at that. We just made it through another 3 sessions. What do you want to do this fall? And have the kids start to brainstorm different kinds of activities that they would be interested in. So what does that look like on a calendar? Well, this June 8th was your silly axe throwing adventure. Here is your movie night. June 19th. Here is your water play date, July 13th. And here is going to Mass together and hanging out. So that's another 3 sessions. So now we're up to 9. The kids say, we are having a wonderful time. Yes, we want to continue our small group into the fall. So now you're going to start to preliminarily calendar for the fall. You need to consider that optimal timing. And really, to answer that question, is there a perfect answer to that? No. But what I would say is, how do you grow in relationship with people? You spend time with them. How are your closest relationships developed? Because you spend a lot of time with those people. So ideally, weekly small groups would be the best. You're going to be spending the most time. You're going to be growing most in relationship. Is that realistic for these kids? Maybe for some of them. For others, they might be like, no, that's a little bit too much. I'd rather do every other week or twice a month. You decide it's going to be, first and third, fill in the blank, Sunday, Thursday, whatever works for them. Be flexible. When are the kids going to be able to meet? Once you have a sense of what frequency is going to work for them, you're going to put together your preliminary calendar and then ask parents to really look at the family calendar. And remember, the sooner that you can get those dates in their hand, the sooner that they can be put in the master family schedule. And just like Kate said, at this point with 10th grade students, they might be starting to drive, but the people who are still holding the calendar and the keys in that family are the parents. So you want to make sure that you are A-okay with the parents, and that your events are going to hold space and not just get bumped out of the way by other things. So then your step 9 is you're going to finalize your calendar. My small group has said, hey, that every other Wednesday thing, that's going to be awesome. It doesn't interfere with dance or football or whatever else I'm involved in. I can give you every other Wednesday. And so I literally just took the 2024 calendar and went every other Wednesday. So this is what it looks like. September 4th, 18th, October 2nd, 16th, and 30th, November 13th and 20th, and December 4th and 18th. That would be 9 sessions this fall to make it to Christmas. What I recognized as I was doing that is that October 30th was, of course, the day before Halloween. So what would the kids love to do? Nothing more than eat candy and maybe dress up. So I just immediately put in Halloween party, whatever that's going to look like. That's probably going to be human formation. We're hanging out together, and then we can plug other things into that. Once you've
And
gotten
Danielle,
your date,
just to piggyback off of you,
thanks, Kate.
I love the semester planning because your small group sports activities usually run by semester. So what may work this semester may not work next semester. Consistency is really great for people planning ahead and also, like, let's be real, for your schedule. But then if there needs to be a pivot around Christmas time to another schedule, that's what this allows to happen. But the sooner you can let people know what that is, likely the more chance you have of people prioritizing that on a calendar. So thanks, Danielle.
I love that. Thank you, Kate. Great point. Okay, so once you've got your dates down, then what do? You do what you do any other time you're planning catechesis, any other time you're planning edge sessions or purpose sessions. You're going to plug the brainstormed ideas into there. So that's the stuff that you've talked with the kids about. And then boom, you're planned through New Year's 2025, people. So this is a helpful chart here at the end that is something really easy that you could make on your own, where you would just divide up and sort of brainstorm different human activities, different intellectual formation activities, spiritual or pastoral. And the purpose for that is to really just provide a well-roundedness, to provide a holistic kind of formation for your kids, so that all of those different parts of their being are being fed. Also, Kate said that the Padlet has ideas for the different forms of formation, and they're all listed under the 10th grade area so that you don't have to do all the brainstorming yourself. Good job, Kate. Okay. Okay, questions?
What
Jen, do you have a-
happens? Sorry, whenever
Yeah, I mean, go ahead.
when your volunteers that you've lined up, their schedules don't meet up with the small group that you have for them, and then, or whenever, so you 9th grade schedule is a lot different than 10th grade schedule, and everything just falls apart.
Great question.
So I'm going to take a stab at this one. A couple of things could happen. So the first one is that when you're working in a small group, the benefit is that usually among 5 people, if you're planning 6 to 8 weeks ahead, you'll be able to find something that you can meet on. Think outside the box. Like, it can be a Saturday morning, it can be a Friday night, it can be lunchtime. If somebody can get to a lunchtime, and even though you might need to have short small groups, a small group leader could show up. I'm probably not in schools today, but like, there could be some creativity with where you're meeting. If it's a school where this is supported, and you can get the clearances and stuff, that might be an idea. So just, I would encourage small group leaders and parents and teens to have that conversation together about what possible spaces can we find in the calendar. And then the second thing is, it might be time to kind of shuffle small groups and small group leaders. If there is really no calendar overlap, you can't force something that's not happening, right? So then it's time to kind of shuffle small group leaders around so that you can find schedules that fit, and work toward finding something that can be an overlap. Obviously, you're going to want to prepare personality before schedule, prioritize that. But if a schedule really doesn't work, then work with what you have as far as scheduling goes, because if they can't meet, there's no chance for the personality to work. What else do you have to add? Everybody, like, I'm sure that this is creative thinking. I'm sure everybody has ideas.
I was just going to jump in there, Kate. So I remember when we first started talking about small groups with Everett, he kept stressing flexibility, and that goes against everything in my body in terms of very, very planned out, organized things. And so, like he said, no, you really have to be very flexible. Like when can the kids meet? And he talked about meeting at this crazy time. And I was thinking, gosh, what would it look like if we flipped the switch and saying we're going to go around your schedule as opposed to you coming to my schedule? Because traditionally we just think, okay, well, catechesis is always going to be Sunday at 9:30. We're not going to deviate that from that. And so, but if we flip the script and say, when is good for you? Does that take energy? Yep, it takes energy and stuff, but it helps me get into a different frame of mind. So like when you're saying if everything falls apart, that's yeah, we have to start again. Like if everything is falling apart, where do we start? How do we bring people together? So I don't know if we can answer your question if everything's falling apart, but we can just say, how can we be a little bit more creative in the way and how we schedule with small groups? So like there could be a group that really is a morning group, and there could be a group that's really a night group. Like I would, like when Father Tom talked about being up with the sunrise, that would be me. If you talked about, okay, we're going to do a movie starting at 9 o'clock at night, that would not be me. I would be asleep. So like even those types of things could be helpful to when you're scheduling out things. But yeah, that new thinking for me of flexibility, that's where my growing edge is. When Kate talked about growing edges, that's my growing edge.
I think Everett also mentioned, like, so maybe he had a small group and they were all in the same sport. So after that sport practice,
Yeah,
they would all meet whenever that sport practice was. They would meet after the sport practice. Or like folks are in rowing, which another sport, but that one meets crazy awful early. Like rowers, I don't know if they're up at like 4 o'clock in the morning. So I'm not saying every small group leader should be up at 4 o'clock in the morning, but Steve would lead his small group immediately after rowing practice and before school started in the school parking lot. Like those kinds of things, we are not used to thinking in terms of like, if I had to squeeze in coffee with my best friend, when could I make it work in my schedule? Like if that were the kind of question we had, rather than like, when can I make catechesis happen? It might open up some opportunities that we don't have. But I love the question with what if the schedule doesn't work the way we anticipate? That is an awesome question.
Irene, another thought that I'm having is to look at that group of students. And if there are a couple of students who are just really on fire for small groups, maybe you would look at the parents. Now, not every kid is going to want to be in a small group with their parent. I mean, that you have to know the dynamic, and the relationship between those. But honestly, parents will do just about anything if their kids really want to do it. They'll try to make it happen, is what I'm saying. I mean, I do that with my own children. So if my soon to be confirmed son was like, Mom, I really want to do these small groups and they're going to be at X time, I mean, I would do what I could to make it happen. But if it wasn't going to happen and I knew he still wanted it to happen, I might step up and say, hey, well, you know what? I'll be the leader for it and I'll take it for a little while.
I have a parent and a volunteer here, so.
Hello.
So, hi, my name is Jen. I currently teach high school, so confirmation this year. And we're in the midst of prep. And as we're looking to transition, not this year's kids, but next year's kids to the small group model, I guess my question is, knowing my kid, knowing his peers, knowing the students in our class this year, what is the hook to get the kids to come to join a small group versus just going to do something with their friends?
That is an awesome question. That is an awesome question. And I think that so when Kate was talking a little bit about, she mentioned Taylor Swift off the cuff. And it was like right now, everybody is talking about this whole thing about the should Taylor Swift go to the Super Bowl? Are they going to get? That's the kind of thing of that's where there's some good cultural things that we can talk about, because the arguments that are going back and forth of she's ruining football. Well, no, she's supporting her boyfriend. Those things, that's where the kids are interested right now in things like that. So if you could hook them in to say, hey, what do you think about this? Let's have a discussion. those types of things could hook them, or whatever's going on in their school. There's always something that they're talking about in the school that, did you see so-and-so, or that, talk about that. Those are the hooks that will get them there. And when they know then that you're interested in what they're doing, and you're not kind of like eavesdropping, it's kind of like really creating that conversation, then they'll that's kind of like the hook. That's the winning the relationship. And then they'll start asking deeper questions as you go along. But to me, I think that that's the hook, is what are they talking about? What are they interested in? What's going on in their life and in their school?
And I think the other piece of that too, I think your question about like what's different from them hanging out with their friends and small group is a really good distinction, because I think I would put two things there. The first one is focus on discipleship rather than just doing our own thing. So if your small group is not focused on Jesus, whether that's human formation focused on Jesus, spiritual formation focused on, if it's not, like, there's not a point for us to be doing it, right? So that focus may not be overt, right? It may be that we're kind of using back doors to get to know people, or it does, people don't think about it necessarily as faith-based, but the kind of relationship we enter into is different because we're Catholic Christians. So I think that's the first part, that it's focused on discipleship. So this is people who love Jesus walking toward Jesus together. That's the focus of a small group. And that has a meaning and a relevance and a rootedness that is really countercultural and a breath of fresh air for our young people. Our young people are the most anxious and lonely generation. They have more contact and less relationship than ever before in sociological history. So I think that piece of us recognizing that what we're doing is a very human ministry, and it's also a very spiritual ministry. So that's the first part. And then the second part, I think developmentally, teens are wired to start breaking a little bit with their family, being independent from their family, and referring to other places for kind of their authority. And that's relational authority. They're not looking for an institution to tell them what to do, but they are looking to other places to kind of find their space and their identity. And so what we're doing in small groups is we're providing a solid adult mentors who love them and can walk with them as they're walking through those spaces. So is a teen going to be able to recognize that immediately? Maybe not. But after a couple of weeks of being around somebody who's deeply interested in them, that remembers something about them from meeting to meeting, that cares about them and walks with them and doesn't tell them what to do, but listens and guides, that's very powerful. And I think many of us who have a lot of experience with teens would recognize that they're not going to tell you how much they crave adult attention, but oh, do they crave adult attention? They're not going to be like your little people who are 3 and 5 and run up to any adult who will read to them and play with them. But they do so much crave the protection and reflection of fatherhood and motherhood that God gives us through his own presence in our lives. Like, they really crave that. And so in small groups, we're providing another avenue. It's not all of it. We're not replacing parents by any means. So if you're hearing me say that, please, that's not what I'm saying. But we're providing another mentor and another layer of relationship and solidity in a time that's really tumultuous for them, but also in a way that's not so rooted to their home and their family that they can kind of like reach out to that as they're wired to be more independent. So that was really long. I'm going to stop talking now, but those are the two reasons. That's why I feel so strongly that small groups are really critical, especially at this age group.
Kathleen.
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
Mhm.
Yes.
Okay, I had a question. And you might have answered this at the very beginning and I was doing something else, truthfully. Do you do we need to designate between what next year will be 10th, 11th, and 12th graders? Or is it okay to put them all together? I mean, supposing that you could get 10th, 11th, and 12th graders, can they be mixed together? That's okay?
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. And how many people need to be at each event? Say you go to one of the choices that was on that list, hike in the woods. I
Mhm.
mean, should there be 2 adults at least? I know you said 1 to 6. So what if you only have like 4 kids? Do you still need to have 2 people?
You always
Yes.
have to have at
Always.
least 2 adults. Now, if you're
Okay.
doing a large, if you're watching a movie with 10 kids, you can have just 2 adults. You don't have to have 3 because you're over the limit of 8. But if you're doing a small group, you have to have 2 for every 8. But going for a walk in the woods, no matter what you do, a minimum of 2 adults.
Okay. All right.
And
with
also just be
clearances.
aware of the developmental difference between like a late 9th grader and an 11th turning 12th grader. Like those are pretty significantly different places in teenage life. So it may work to put them all in the same group, so you absolutely can. But also if you have a pretty mature 11th grader and a still pretty developing 10th grader, you might want to consider how best to arrange that small group.
We're a small town and only one high school. So in this case, these kids all know each other. Whereas I can see in a bigger area that they, like Erie, they wouldn't necessarily know each other.
Sure. Great point, Kathleen. And that really goes to what we've been saying all along is that you are the one who knows your people best. You know your community. So for sure, if those kids hang out on a regular basis together anyway, then for sure put them in a small group together. Great questions. What else? No stupid questions, we promise. I mean, there are no stupid questions, is what I'm trying to say. Okay. All right. There will be another opportunity to ask questions at the very end, but right now I want to toss it over to Mary, who's just going to provide some really key pointers to kind of send us off this evening to wrap all of this up. And so please just perk up your ears for another couple minutes. I'm going to toss it over to Mary.
Okay. So you just got a lot of info on planning and calendaring. Your mind's probably going a mile a minute right now because you're already thinking about how am I going to do this and what's next and all that other stuff. I just want to give you a few short tips and a little advice from our team on staying grounded. Your activity should promote a shared and sharing experiences. Think of it as teaching by action and dialogue rather than handing on something. So there's a big difference between somebody telling me how to make my grandmother's sticky buns and actually being in the kitchen with her, rolling dough and listening to her talk. So aim for the experience of being in the kitchen. For the majority of your meetings, it should take about 10 minutes or less to prep for the meeting. Although in the beginning, it might take a little bit longer. It may take you more time than that to think of the idea than to actually prepare for it. But if it's always taking you more than 10 minutes to get prepared for a session, you're going to get burnout. You may not think that's possible, and hopefully you're leaving today with lots of good ideas. And always feel free to reach out to us for help and for ideas and suggestions and some of the issues that you're coming up with that you're thinking, oh my gosh, I really need to talk to somebody about this. We're always here for that. So you've heard the saying that you can't pour from an empty cup. So be deliberate about your own prayer and community life so that you're able to show up for your family and for your small group too. So we're just going to give you a couple ideas. Get with some of the other small group leaders once a month and share personal prayer intentions and how you see God working in your life. Be super authentic with them. Share the real highs and lows of your life. Another idea might be to think about some of your faith-filled friends. Find a time to invite them to dinner or dessert, but make a pact with yourself that you're not going to do that extra deep clean in preparation because this should be a cup filler, not an added stress. Third idea is consider working with somebody in your family, a family member or spouse to make sure that you can take some time to yourself to get to adoration or confession once a month and just get that kind of momentary relief by yourself to have a little quiet time. So those are just a couple ideas and a few tips to help keep you grounded. You know best what helps you stay grounded and feeling spiritually filled. Okay, so think about some of those ideas and take care of yourself so that you can be better for your family, for the kids that you're working with, and for yourself too. So we're about ready to wrap it up. So I'm just going to let Deacon Steve finish the night out.
Thanks, Mary. I just want to mention, all of this is going towards relationships, as we said many, many times. I don't know if you're all aware of, but the Synod work is coming back. Like we're now in a new stage. It's called the interim stage of the Synod. And we had a listening session last night with our facilitators. And I just want to say that the questions and the care in our parishes was so palpable last night. And there is a longing and an ache in many parents and older and grandparents' hearts that their kids, both adults and grandchildren, are not part of the church. And the questions were, well, what can we do? How can we do this? And our 4 themes that emerged from the Erie Diocesan report in 2022 for the our Synod report was that welcoming inclusivity, communication, leadership, and mission and outreach were the 4 themes that emerged that we really need to pay attention to, that there seems to be some weakness in our churches, parishes around those areas. And one of them is, how do we make people feel welcome? This is a way, I know that we are talking about small groups, we're talking about change, we're talking about these things, and it is overwhelming. I'm not going to poo-poo that. It is overwhelming. But this is where we can build the church and welcome people back and walk with them. Because one of the questions we were talking about is, how have you seen or experienced the church walking alongside you in major issues or events in your life? Was the church even aware of any major issues and events? And to hear the sharings around that question was just touching and sometimes sad, where there was those absence. So this whole thing around faith formation, the change and things, is really looking at how can we bring our young people to church, and how can we connect our older people back to the young people, because people just long for that community. They talked about, people don't even talk to me when I'm church. So if we're not connecting with each other on those levels, we have to do something. And this is just a way that we can start creating those relationships where people will feel welcomed and that they belong, because many people don't feel welcomed or that they belong in the church. So I know that that's not specifically small groups, but really they go together. When we're building community and relationships, they all go together. So I would just put in a plug that we will have a general listening sessions at the end of the month for anybody who would like to participate in a Synod listening session. The link was on our Facebook page, Instagram page, and we also then sent out that information too. So if you'd like to partake of a listening session, please do. So just any last questions before we leave and before we end in prayer?
On the intellectual side, is there any guidance about what the USCCB framework is for high school, that we incorporate any of that? Is there any good resources? Anything that trying to actually do some catechesis? Because we're essentially taking that piece out, is what, with being all relationship and everything.
Our goal,
Go ahead, Mary.
our goal is to build relationship with the kids and have them build relationships with Jesus. That's the main goal of these small groups. There will be catechesis that they get and they absorb without even realizing it. Sometimes when you're having discussions, theological discussions with them and intellectual discussions. But what our ultimate goal is that they learn to have a relationship with Christ, and that as they grow in that relationship, they will want to learn more. They're going to have a hunger for learning more. But without the relationship, nothing we say to them in catechesis wise is really going to sink in like we want it to sink in. If somebody else from the team might have a better explanation or idea how to answer this.
I think that there are many ways that you could add catechetical pieces to your small groups. So, for instance, you know, if there were, again, we're talking about, we want to ask them what they're interested in, what they're living. So even around life issues, in terms of, you know, when right now we know that suicide is really high. So talking about life issues, talking about the value of life, talking about what the church teaches around that are all catechetical things that we can do. So whatever, I would invite us to always be thinking of, how are we teaching the faith in what we're talking about? So theology of the body could be brought in, watching sessions of The Chosen and talking about, what did you think about that? Because people are relating to that in ways. So I wouldn't say that we're not doing catechetical things. It's not like we're going out and we're not having serious conversations, because I think that the hope is that small groups will lead to those serious conversations and more catechetical pieces to it. So I'm not sure that we're taking all the catechesis out of it.
And I think if you check out on the Padlet, some of the under intellectual formation, there's some ideas of some like starter things to do and some next level up series and things like that formed is listed on there. And Danielle, I think that we also, during the small group training that we did last January, there was a very comprehensive list. Danielle's, one of her skills is input. And I looked at that and I was like, holy smokes. I think it was like 2 or 3 pages of just online resources and links to Bible studies and other kinds of studies, and lots of really heavy on the intellectual formation side. So yeah, Steve, I would definitely second that this is absolutely a piece. If the intellectual formation is missing from your small group completely, then your wheel definitely has a flat spot, that this is not all one-sided on one thing or another, that it requires all of those aspects of formation to be the best that we can be for our students and to do what Jesus is asking us to do.
Right, but I was looking at what resources that go, like, are we considering the bishop's framework at all in helping with the developing that intellectual side of things? Is that out of date too much now that we haven't asked the bishops to update their role as teachers of the faith?
I think when you work with young people for a period of time, you'll find that the things that they're encountering in life are what's on the bishop's framework. So when you look at the bishop's framework, a lot of times it's linked to, it's classified in things like, this year is Christology, this year is church history. And those things are really great in a classroom setting. But I think as people live, they encounter questions about Christology and questions about church history in a pretty integrated and organic way. So absolutely, we can put the bishop's framework up on the Padlet, that if you want to kind of go through and see like, hey, are there spaces that I'm not sure that we're hitting? For sure, you can do that. But I am confident that the things that we're encountering, the questions that we have in the faith, are going to be leading to a really comprehensive exposure to a lot of those areas of intellectual formation. And it really mirrors the way we learn as adults too, that it's through the challenges and through the questions, even the way that the church developed its doctrine was through challenges that the church recognized, like, oh, we have to address this particular question. That's why things like the Immaculate Conception weren't codified into dogma until centuries later, right? It was because they weren't questioned. So as students go through and they question things, they're going to be going back to this intellectual study and really digging deep to make sure that they understand. So absolutely, we can put the bishop's framework on there. I'm confident that you'll be encountering all of those things as you move through the years with your years with your small groups, for sure.
Irene, I also feel that you are definitely and most readily, you can definitely make a connection between the intellectual part that you're looking for, especially from the bishops, and putting it into your group without them even knowing it. You can certainly do that. So you're just going to take a little bit of imagination on your part and just work group. I think it'll be good for you. I think you'll be able to do it. I have all the confidence in you.
Thanks, Bunny. Any other questions before we close? Okay, again, thanks for hanging in. Whoop, Danielle.
No. I just wanted to say that when you're thinking about content resources, like Kate said, I had gathered a whole list of things. Why Disciple has a lot of great small group studies that you can do. There are just tons of different resources out there. But one thing that we all have in common is that we are all working with LifeTeen, and all of our middle schoolers are using Edge resources. Now, one of the things that comes in those Edge boxes are these cute little mini books. And often these little mini books are designed with small group sessions. So for example, this one is called Connect 3, a small group guide on prayer. It's not going to be a huge stretch for you to take these 3 sessions that are in here and just mature them a little bit if you felt that when you read the session, it was a little bit too young for kids who are going to be in 10th grade. But let's be honest, does an 8th grader pray a whole lot differently than a 10th grader? Probably not. So these sorts of resources that come in your Edge books, or excuse me, in your Edge boxes, or that are available online through LifeTeen are also great resources for you to use. So I just wanted to point that out, that there are plenty of small group sessions that are available right through LifeTeen that are already included with the subscription that you have for your parish. I don't know if that helps. That's all, Steve.
Okay, thanks, Danielle. Okay,
Oh, I'm seeing the chat. I know that we kind of are over 8 o'clock, but maybe
go to 8:30.
Renee, a timeline to follow to keep us on track with finding group leaders, calendaring, etc. I think when Danielle, I'll let you take that question real quick, because I think you started it in the calendaring that you shared with everybody.
Oh, Renee, the thing I was sharing, that document I was sharing, I'm gonna have
basically just want to know, like, okay, by a certain date we should have 3 group leaders, and by a certain date we should be getting these groups together, so that you don't kind of fall behind when this whole thing is going to be starting and we're like, oh my God, we didn't even find group leaders yet. You know,
Sure.
like I feel like I need a timeline, like, so we can put on the calendar that by such and such a date we need to have these group leaders ready, and then by such and such a date the calendar should be done, and you know what I mean? Like, I just feel like I
So
need.
even for like, when I was showing that before confirmation stuff, you want to back up even further. You want to know like when you should be recruiting. Yes. Okay.
Yes.
We can put that together. Great question.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And then just also being aware that a lot of it's going to change based on your confirmation date. So some parishes have confirmation in February, some parishes have confirmation in late April or May. So what you may see is like 5 weeks before confirmation or something like that.
And if our confirmation date is like one of the last ones, it's like late May, wouldn't it make if we did because the bishop does the scheduling for the confirmations, does it really matter when the confirmation date is of when we transition into small groups if we've completed the purpose sessions?
no, you can transition into small groups as soon if your purpose sessions are done and you haven't had confirmation. Yeah, please do. the important thing is that we don't want gaps. We don't want somebody to have a confirmation in February and then absolutely nothing until the next September. Because if that happens, we will lose the kids. So that's why the connections, the transition from purpose confirmation into small groups is so key. So yeah, good question. Tiffany asked, what is the ways to stay spiritually grounded again? Confession once a month. Yep, that's great. Also, it's kind of like, what are ways that you can treat yourself? So like, is there ways that you could spend time reading a good spiritual book? Is there a time where you could share with others how God's working in your life? You know, and as I think Mary said, to get real with that, to say, what are the highs and the lows? Like, what am I experiencing? So those are ways that you can say, and create your own kind of like small prayer group where you're praying for one another, and praying for each other's needs, but also supporting one another. And then also enlisting family help so that you are able to get to, like, if you wanted to go to a mass, or if you wanted to go to adoration, or if you wanted to go to a talk or a Bible study, that you have some of those supports that you're able to do that to feed yourself, to stay grounded. Oh, I think people answered Tiffany before I saw the people answering Tiffany. There you go. All right. So again, thanks for hanging in for these 3 weeks. You spent your last 3 Thursdays with us, so thank you very much. As we said before, these are recorded and will be posted. The other 2 were sent to you already. Mary will send this one out as well, but then they'll be posted on the Padlet, so that you'll be able to go back and use them over and over again. Have your small group leaders, if they weren't here, look at them as well. And again, we're available for any questions, so don't hesitate to reach out. So let's close in prayer. So in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Loving God, we thank you for the youth of our diocese. We ask that you help us lead them closer to you. We ask that they catch that spark and have the Holy Spirit alive and burning in their hearts, that they want to continue to learn and to grow in your love, in your presence, in our faith. We ask your blessings upon our diocese as we are in the middle of pastoral planning, but also in the synod, that blessings on all the people who are partaking in the questions that are being asked of the synod, and how our church could grow and become more vibrant for our people. So we ask all these things in your most precious name. Amen. Okay. Good night, everybody. Have a wonderful day tomorrow. Go outside tomorrow because it's supposed to be beautiful.
Night. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you.
everybody.
Thank you.